So the first thing you're going to want to do is pull down the latest on the main branch, and then we're going to create a new branch that is named based on the ticket that we're working. So now we need to open Visual Studio Code. Alright, now let's turn requirements into a feature file. Right now we don't have anything under features. Let's select new file, and this is going to be for the login page. So this will be the login feature. So this feature is the login page. And we have our first scenario. We'll just go ahead and grab that, paste it in, and I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to auto-format and Control-S to save. Now, let's go take a look at this login page. Okay. So for this page, we're going to create what we call a page object model, which is an object that represents the page. I'm going to call this one the login.page.ts for TypeScript. So the first thing we want to do is import our test data. And we'll start our class called login page. And to be able to import the class, we'll need to export default new login page. So that's our bare bones. We're going to give it a comment. This is the URL is like, it's going to be our base URL with login. And our base URL comes from this one right here. So this is the base URL. This will change depending on what environment or website we're testing, but the /login part should not. So when we hover over this, we see the comment. We're going to go ahead and add the comment here, so that when we export this, this is the comment that we'll see. So it seems a bit redundant, but it's the best practice. The page object is really broken up into two parts. We have properties, which are the elements themselves, and then we have functions, things that we can do on the page, where the elements are going to be username, password, and login button. The function would be logging in. So let's add in those elements. Right click to inspect, and we can see that there is a user ID of username for this input. That's the tag name. So we're going to get the tag name's input, and it says username. So this is the username input, which is a function, and that needs to return a string. And to select by ID, we use pound, and then the ID name, username. So if you've done CSS, this should look quite familiar. And the next element here, let's go ahead and inspect, is the password. Same thing. So I'm going to hit Control C, Control V, change this to password and password. Now we need one more thing, and that is this button here that says submit. Okay, there's no ID, but there's a type that says submit, and it's probably the only button. So I'm going to hit Control F, and I'm going to use XPath. So XPath starts with // or anywhere on the page. Give me a button, and there's only one of one on here. We can be more specific and say where the type equals submit, and type is an attribute, so it gets an @ sign. And submit is case sensitive. There we go. So we can use this XPath selector to guarantee that whatever button we click is the submit button. We'll just go ahead and copy this and change it to button because that's the tag name. And we do that because there might be an input and a label, right? They both say password. So that's how we're going to distinguish the two. So we have button submit. And I'm going to grab this XPath out of here and paste in our new value, which reminds me I need to use double quotes for these. So just like the class, we're going to give our elements some comments. This is the input for username. Okay, so input is put into these tilde tags here, so that when we hover over it, it gets put into this darker background text here. And then username is in quotes because it quite literally says username over here. We'll go ahead and do the others. And this is the button for login, actually. Let's change that to login. There we go. The first thing we're going to need to be able to do is open this page. So every page I give an open method that's going to return browser URL. We'll give it the test data base web URL plus /login. Opens the login page. Alright, in our next function, we'll need to log in as the username, which is a string, and the password, which is also a string. Will need to be passed in. But first things first, we need to open this page. So here we see this .open opens the login page. So we're going to open this page, and then we need to select this element, this .input username. But before we do anything with it, we are going to wait for it to be clickable, and we're going to give it a timeout of test data dot default timeout. So as a best practice, when we open a page, we're going to wait for the element to be clickable so that we give the JavaScript time to load. Because the element could exist, but not actually be clickable. So now that we have this, we can set the value of this input to the username that gets passed in. Set the value of the input password to password. Then we're going to do browser this dot button login dot click. Alright, there's our login method. Logs in using the given credentials. Okay, that looks like our page object is pretty much good to go. So now we're going to need to wire it up with some steps. So let's create a steps file. This will be login.steps.ts. Now, this .steps might seem redundant because it's in the steps file, but it certainly helps when you're looking at the tabs up top. So we have the login page, the login steps, the login feature, clearly defined on our tabs. In the steps, we're going to need to import given, when, and then from Cucumber. We're also going to need to import the login page from the local file system, pages, login page. And for the next part, I'm going to expand the window here and do a little moving around the page over here on the right side, and move the steps down. There we are. So these are the things we need to do, and these are going to be comments. Alright, after fixing that typo, let's go ahead and create our methods. So we have given this string and what are we going to do about it? We're going to do this generic function. And given I am an authenticated user viewing the login page, oh, well, that's quite simple. We just need to call login page.open. That means we are looking at the login page. Okay, next, when, and we'll paste in the string. What are we going to do about it? We're going to give it this generic function, and this is going to call login page.login as, and let's do test data dot test user and test data dot test pass. Great. We just need to now import test data. There we are. So when I log in using my email and password, we're going to log in. Then I should be redirected to the account dashboard. Okay. So how do we know we're redirected to the account dashboard? Let's go ahead and throw this over to the side and see what this looks like. So let's look at the .env file. There we go. So we're going to log in as Tom Smith using this super secret password. And now we know we are in the secure area because the URL says secure. So we need to expect the browser to have URL containing secure. And we can test that out. We can do a new terminal, npm test. And there we have it. That's it for now. See you at the next one.